Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and if you didn't know already, Baktria was just released, so it's a free LC. They unlocked it, playable in the campaign, playable in multiplayer, another free download, so that's a nice treat from CA. Anyways, I'm not really going to show you all their forces here. Sorry I didn't choose the loadout menu, but you guys can go ahead and do that on your own. I'm just going to go ahead and show you a couple games that I play with these guys. I like them a lot. I think they're very, kind of like the Seleucids. I'm not super knowledgeable about the stats and how different units stack up, just because there's a lot of unit variety in Rome 2. Maybe not in the sense as they're so predefined like in Shogun 2, which I liked. You could tell what would counter what in what situation. In Rome 2, it's a lot of very similar units that are slightly different in a couple of like percentage points or something like that here and there, so I'm not very good at telling units across factions apart. But what I do like about these guys is they do have a solid diversity. They have the thorax pikemen, which I find are always very reliable. Then the Baktrians also get these cataphracts and a lot of very good cavalry, which I really like. They also have access to a decent amount of archers and skirmish units. I like the variety given to these guys. They also have access to some elephants. Sorry for the brief sniffles, it may show up occasionally. I am sick at the moment. Anyways, yeah, I'm forming up my forces here. This is going to be against an opponent, Jolly Canadian. Shout out to him. He said I think this was the guy who knew me. Anyways, we played a couple battles together. Definitely very fun, and I ran into a couple of you guys online. Anyways, I want to point out the way that you should probably deploy your forces. When you have an army like this that consists of a pike wall and then skirmishers, I would say go ahead and put your main wall on unit formation 1, and then put your skirmishers on unit formation 2, that is grouping, I mean. The benefits of that is going to make it much easier for you to micro, because all the time the main push of your battle is going to be sort of where you position the core of your forces. So you want to be able to position that main line very quickly. Just click one, drag it where you want it to be. Same goes with your archers or your skirmishers, so that's what I recommend doing. Group those kind of units like that, and then the rest of them just highlight them and move them around, and yeah, that's what I tend to do. Over here I'm going to zoom in. The blue and gold and sort of royal colors of the Baktrians is very nice. I really like it. They're looking very epic, and here are my cavalry, as you can see, charging out. The main goal of these guys was to stay hidden. I was assuming my opponent would be forming up a little closer. I was going to try and loop them around the forest, because now you can of course run troops, and as long as they're still hidden, as long as they're still in the forest, running them isn't going to mean that your opponent sees them, which is very cool. So I was going to try and wrap around. My opponent, however, has gone for the hill, so I'm going to be going for the long loop around. I do like some of these really light Bactrian cavalry here. Remind me of the light horses in Shogun. However, these guys are not really going to be able to pack the same punch that I found those guys were able to do. They are very quick, you can see here, very responsive. They'll get away from nearly any cavalry, but then again, they don't really deliver the punch that light cav could do in Shogun 2. In Shogun 2, I really liked it because they were nimble, and if you place them correctly, they could deliver a world of hurt. But anyways, here we go. I'm going to be moving up. My opponent is definitely securing this hill. I put some guys here. I'm going to try and poke and prod at my opponent, try and get him to commit his horses on that side, and then swing around with my horses on the other flank. And yeah, I'm going to move up into this patch of woods here, at least start the approach. I figure if I'm going to be attacking him and he has his own skirmishers, the best way to do it is to give my skirmishers the biggest advantage possible, which is going to be to put my own in the forest. Take a look back there. I didn't see those guys striking out. Very good move on my opponent. You can see my cavalry are going to disengage very quickly. I like how CA was able to fix that, but still you can see in one charge, he lost Nomad, I lost half of my unit, so you can just see how much you have to babysit those guys, and yeah, never really let them sit around close to the enemy like that. That was pretty cocky on my part. I thought I'd be able to catch it much sooner. Guess I didn't. But yeah, my cavalry on the right are still hidden. They're going to be waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike, and I'm going to be pushing up my main forces here. Looks like my opponent is going to try and send forward a screen of pikes. I'm going to position my archers over a bit on the left. I want to be able to shoot at his pikemen, not from the front, but from a side angle, so I can get around from their shields. Keep in mind that attacking from the sides of pike units is going to be way more effective, so that's what I'm going to try and do in order to take out as many. He's going to form up the shield wall. You can see there the new icon that appears, so I'm going to keep pushing around the side, and of course keeping some pikes close to me. Also, I'd like to talk about the Caesar campaign that was just announced, the DLC. I know you guys have a lot of problems with CA, their policies, the way they have turned out Rome 2. I understand what you guys are saying. I'm just going to say, as I said in that other announcement video, I'm going to go ahead and buy it, and then I'll share it with you guys, tell you what you think, and then that way you guys don't have to buy it if you don't want to support CA's policies and the way they're kind of churning out content. So hopefully I can give you some of the enjoyment of the DLC pack for free, and you guys can just enjoy it while I play it, or while I use it to bring you some historical videos and whatnot. Anyways, what I also wanted to say is I think the reason they released this campaign pack is not going to be because they've ditched patches. I think it's something that Sega had said that they should do. I think it was something that was kind of written down on the calendar way before Rome 2 was announced. I think they knew they were going to have some sort of campaign patch like this, and then I think what happened is Sega just kicked it out the door, moved everything forward, and so CA was forced to release all this content ahead of time. You know, a lot of the things that people forget is that Sega is actually to blame for some of the timetables, and that's kind of why we see this game being rushed. And I think the fact that this campaign is coming out doesn't mean that CA is not wanting to support Rome 2. It just means that they were, I think, locked into releasing this at a certain time. You know, it would be nice if they could summon the balls to tell CA or tell Sega that, you know, hey, we're not going to release this until the game is fixed. But I think once this expansion pack is going to be released, CA is going to have all their things that they were supposed to be released, if you know what I mean. And so hopefully they can commit a bit more of the resources to the patches. Some of you guys said that CA lied. They said they would keep doing patches every 2 weeks. You know, that's true, but at the same time, with the amount of patches they're doing, it becomes very hard to do it every 2 weeks, and so I'd rather them be, you know, take their time in order to advance and make patches better and less glitchy. Something that I saw with patch 7 is definitely some improvements, but I think the problem is that every time they do these patches, and this is something I've seen online, every time they do these patches, it ties multiplayer to single player, so they may need to balance units in single player in the campaign, and what that does is it tremendously upsets the balance in multiplayer. So what I think they need to do is just sever the link between those two, and what that allows CA to do is basically keep tweaking the multiplayer or the campaign experience, allow them to tweak that, because I know they said that's their focus with this game. Allow CA to focus their attention on finessing the single player, getting everything where it should be, working that, and if they stop changing the multiplayer, then it'll allow the modders to come up with their own mods. And I've seen a couple of mods on the forums where people are trying to standardize a sort of mod that you can download for multiplayer. So if CA will segment the two, it'll allow the modding community and the community at large to create their own rules as to, you know, how they want to create multiplayer, because I think that'll be way better, and we can really make it quicker than I think CA would be able to do otherwise. Anyways, right here, you can see we're moving our forces continually forward. Or I don't know why I said we. My cavalry got caught a bit out in the open, but I was happy to have this engagement because it meant I could swoop around and knock out some of his companions right here. I'm going to keep getting this round. However, he's going to deploy more of his forces. One of the benefits of having the cataphracts is they can pretty much take on these infantry. They are good for a slug fight. In the center, my opponent is falling back to the hill, so I definitely have to keep pushing the rest of my forces up into this battle, keep my opponent from being able to isolate my cavalry here. So I'm going to bring these guys back down and charge right into his exposed peltas, and at the same time keep moving these guys up the force, put the pressure on, and try and salvage my army at the top of the hill. I'm going to keep them committed because it looks like I am getting the best of his cavalry in that engagement. If I can knock them out, my opponent has no mobility, and I can basically swoop around him. I'm going to commit some of these spears into the fight here, because I see my opponent is bringing in more sturdy troops, and looks like he's decided actually to pull out from that engagement and form a bit of a new box. So I'm going to decide to target the flanks of his forces and start moving up some spears here, and try and get the full surround on his guys. Here I'm going to move up this pike wall and basically try and help salvage this fight. My general is engaged here, he's doing a lot of damage, but again he got charged by some royal peltas, who are very, very beefy units, very strong units. In the back, take a look at my cavalry here. They have been able to grind out, basically grind down the enemy forces. His general is down a solid number, but at the end you can see my forces there are going to start to fall, and I think my cavalry got a pretty decent exchange. It looks like he tried to evacuate prematurely. He's trying to free up these guys here, trying to charge into the backs of my men. Pretty good move, but it does mean that his forces are going to be caught on the march with my cataphracts charging the back of his men. And I have my own spears moving up, trying to support these guys, trying to finish off these royal peltas. It is incredible just how well those guys hold up. I don't really think those units should be that strong and that cost effective. I don't like how you can charge a whole unit into them, cavalry, and they'll still hold their own. But then again, you may be having some of the dynamics of the hill come into play and stuff like that. I'm charging in his cavalry here that he forgot about with my full unit of cataphracts. That's going to be very good. You can see here I'm already starting to pick apart one of his flank units. I want to be able to take them out because I'm going to open up essentially his new box. Look at my opponent. He actually dismounted his general. He's going to pull his general into the center. Something you would have seen in Shogun. Over here, cataphracts are going to turn around and they're going to decide to charge into that blob of infantry if I can control my guys effectively. And yeah, we're going to line these guys up for a full charge and knock out his peltas finally. I don't know why these guys are so hard to kill. Anyways, look at this glorious charge right here. Very, very cool. And I think soon, yeah, there you go. You're going to see one of the guys go flying from the top of the hill. So a little bit goofy dynamics, but I like it. And still his forces are holding out. I'm amazed. 2 pike units, a cavalry, a cataphract unit from the back, and now more guys charging in there. They're still not breaking, so those guys just attest to their strength. My opponent actually would have done better to form up these guys and just charge down at me. He actually has more men than I do. If you have more men than your opponent, you probably shouldn't be on the defensive like this. He could just go ahead and form up and charge down the hill and probably take me out. If he kept reinforcing the right side there, he could charge the back of my cataphracts, he could break that fight, and I think I would basically be outnumbered. But anyways, it's going to start being a bit too late. I'm going to be able to finish off his troops here. And it's going to leave these guys up here vulnerable, and they're going to be taking more and more hits from every volley. And I figure I've done enough damage to this side. I'm going to try and tell them to target another unit, but you can see I've used up basically all of my archer fire shooting through there. See, like they expended their ammo relatively quickly, a bit too quickly. I'm going to start forming my guys here, pushing them around the side, because I know if my opponent did decide to form up and face me, he could probably beat me. So I'm going to make sure I get around the flanks. That's something you should do if you're a new box like this. Don't do it prematurely. Make sure you have the best strategic grounds, because right here, he's basically giving up the flanks, whereas he could have formed up and prevented me from getting around the sides. But then again, the thinking behind the new box is to say, I have all my flanks secured, I'm in a box. They're going to have to come to me, to my pikes, one way or another. So the best way you want to take out these new boxes is going to be to use all your archers, shoot the backs of the enemy, and then when you do attack, try and attack the weakest position. So either that's going to be a weakened unit, or more likely you're going to want to attack the corners of the box. At least that's how it worked before. It's a little hard to finesse your troops in Rome too, I find, but what you want to do is definitely attack the corners, whittle down his men. If they break formation and charge, then sneak in some more troops, reinforce, and just pick apart the box right there. And yeah, you don't have to attack along the whole frontage of his box. Keep in mind that if you can just attack the corners, then basically you can engage just 2 of his units and keep pouring in more and more men, while the rest of his box, you know, just kind of sits there idly without doing much. So here we go. I'm going to start moving up, make sure I get a full surround. My archers are going to pretend they have more ammo. They're going to pretend to reposition. And I'm going to move some more archers there, who, if anything, will just provide a little bit of a... how do I say? I'm going to try and engage them on the sides of the pikes in order to pose a negative morale buff on his men from being attacked from the side. So I'm going to go ahead and start pushing in from the corner, move in my cataphracts here who are going to try and exploit. I pushed up here, and now I'm going to decide to engage with his men, drop the pikes. So I'm going to swarm that corner, and now we're going to start pushing in from all sides, and this is going to be the weakest of his flanks. He's going to start throwing in more of his troops right here, and that's going to leave a nice little gap for my cataphracts here. But you can see when I engage in the corners, I definitely have numerical superiority, and right here is when I'm going to try and sneak in these cataphracts into this little itsy bitsy gap. And you can see in the back the rest of my forces are moving in, so he doesn't redeploy his forces completely. I'm going to go ahead and charge right through here, sneaking in, going to get a nice charge with these cataphracts into the sides of his men. And you can see even horses can sneak into a little hole in the box, and once you're inside the box, basically you have sights on all the backs of the enemy, so that's going to be a perfect time to charge. I would charge into groups that are engaged with your infantry in order to knock them out. Trying to get a charge on the side of his guys, but the overlapping box right there basically killed all my cavalry, and even the ones who got in basically didn't do much. So pretty effective of the stacking of the corners of his box, did well, but you can see here I am wrapping up this side, so it's only a matter of time before the box crumbles under its own weight and the weight of my forces infiltrating it. Gonna start throwing it. A lot of guys over on the right. You can see my archers charging in. I don't expect them to do too much, but at least they're gonna bog down his men for a little amount of time. And the good thing about these Syrian archers is they have pretty heavy armor, so they're gonna be able to tank some of those hits. They don't have very good stats compared to the elite Persian archers that you can field, but where they do have the benefit is going to be in the armor, so I do like that. Allows them to hold up a bit more in melee and also in a missile exchange. Here we go. I'm going to start cracking this side here, and the rest of his forces are going to start falling. I really like these thorax pikemen. I think they're versatile. Pikemen do very well, even against his Macedonians here. So that's going to be the end of the battle. Baktria I would definitely recommend, especially since it's free. It's fun to play, and as long as you're facing it as an opponent, you know they're not going to be you're not going to be playing against chariots, so that's why I like them as well, is they do have elephants, they do have good units, but it doesn't allow the enemy to use chariots. Take a look at some of the kills, doing very, very well. Yeah, Thorax Pikemen, 124, 127, pretty good, and the archers as well, holding up their own. My opponent didn't use the best Macedon build. I would say you want definitely more Royal Peltis in that build, and some more of the Thorax Pikemen. But anyways, great battle to my opponent. I enjoyed it, and see you guys next time.